other? Get to know each other a little bit better? Excellent. Good, good, good. So we're going to jump right into our next session, which is called When Intent Meets Content, Leads Come In. Join me for this insightful panel discussion that examines how content has evolved into a crucial component of the buyer's journey. The experts will go through how their intent-driven content approach has increased conversions and generated quality leads for them. So our moderator for this session is Ashmita Dhingra. She is from Digifish Media. Ashmita, would you like to come up, please? Let's give her a nice warm round of applause. There we go, thank you. And our panelists are Venkat, who we've had earlier, founder and CEO of BluStream Marketing. Hi, Venkat, how are you? Pramod, founder from Creative Machines. Hi, how are you? Nice to have you again. And the lovely Radhika, Vice President Operations from Markable Solutions. Hi, how are you? Nice to see you again.
All right. Hi, guys. And I hope you had a wonderful lunch. So I think we'll straight away head to what we're here for, to talk about when intent meets content, leads come in. I'm Ashmita Dhingra, a Digifish 3 founder. It's a digital agency, and we've been dealing with consumer data-centric approach all through from a B2B clientele to a B2C clientele. And I think content is something which is overpowering everything. And coming back to, we're sitting in an 8 billion population, and we have more than, say, about 5.7 billion people on internet. And for sure, the only thing which is consumed is content. I think before we head towards further discussion, let's get an introduction to all the panel members here. Venkat, I think you can start.
Yeah, hi. I know you guys saw me yesterday as well. I'm Venkat. I run a digital agency called BluStream. We're a fairly young organization, but we've survived the pandemic, and basically I'm here today. Go on to Pramod.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Pramod Maloo, and I run a digital marketing agency by the name Creative Machines. We are based out of Kolkata, India, and it's wonderful to be part of this panel discussion with all you amazing people. Thank you so much.
Radhika.
Thank you, Pramod. Thank you, Ashmita. Hi. So I'm Radhika, VP of Operations for Markable Solutions. We are a lead gen company. I'm based out of Philippines. We have operations in India and in US as well. Thank you.
I think as consumers, if we look at it, none of us really have anything pre-decided when we are looking in buying a product. And I'm sure we kind of go through a journey from a research point of view to deciding of what kind of a product that we want, and that surely is a journey of content. So I think I would put across the first question to my panel members, that how much of content do you actually think is right for brands to showcase on the platforms? I think I will give that to Radhika, please.
Wonderful question, Ashmita. It's a very controversial question. I'm sure that most of my fellow panelists and marketers here will agree to it. So there is no definite answer to this. That's what I feel. But it's always a tug of war between a content strategist and a content marketer. A strategist will be like, okay, less content, more outreach. Marketer will be like, okay, bring it in, let's have more outreach. Yeah, bring it on, and then let's do it. So from a brand perspective, it's more about, it's expensive. Every piece of content is expensive. So what is the ROI attached to it, right? So it is more than judging it based on the quantity. I think we should be looking at engagement, the relevance, and what exactly is the trigger? What are we trying to communicate, right? It shouldn't be all about the numbers. That's what I feel. But yes, at the end of the day, we have to understand that even the quality is something, a term which we cannot, for every person in this room, quality has a different definition. So coming back to answering your question, Ashmita, I think we have to look for a wider approach. It's a food for thought for everyone here, that what are we trying to do? What are we trying to do in this game? Is it all about numbers, or is it about what's the value we are bringing into the system and for the brands at the end of the day?
I think just to add to that, sorry, yeah, I mean, I would say that it's not about how much, it's about what is that content really and how is it really impacting your users through the journey that they take through the marketing funnel. Right? I mean,
I think, yeah, talking about that, according to me, my experience, I think the shorter, the crisper, and the relevant the content is something which clicks upon for the brands to connect with consumers. Uh, taking that further, I think there are platforms, there are places where right amount of content needs to be showcased. So I think all of us here are digital marketers in our own space. So I think I would put across a question in terms of content, that where all do you think that brands should actually showcase the right amount of content that Radhika and Venkat just mentioned, to get the optimum visualization for that particular content. So I think I will ask Pramod to kind of take on for that.
Sure. So before I respond to that, I'd just like to take a step back and break down the keywords in the topic, because I come from search engine background, and I love keywords. So the keywords are content, intent, and leads.
Yeah.
So I'll ask the room, what is the first thing that you think of when you hear the word intent? Anybody? What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about intent? Interest? Buy something? Okay. Purpose? All right. So if I can sum up all of this, can I safely say intent means the desired end result for anything that we would like to achieve, with a plan of action in our mind and then execute it? So that's intent. And content could be of various types. It could be a text-based content, could be a GIF, a video, infographics, and so on and so forth. And how do we define leads, Venkat? How do you define leads?
so a lead is basically an expression of interest, is what I would say, right? So different businesses look at what they would consider a lead very differently. So, for instance, if you run, an entertainment or publishing organization, for you a lead is as simple as someone who simply comes in and subscribes to your emailer, right? That's one way of looking at it. But if you actually are a banking and finance institute that wants qualified leads in their terminology to go in and reach out to, so that they can sell probably a credit card, they need a lot more information about you. So they probably need to know whether your CIBIL score is good, whether your credit history is good, right? So until and unless the content that you're beaming at these people does not educate them as to what it is that you want them to come out and fill for you, I think there's where the crux is, right? That's really where content translates into intent and then into leads.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys. That was insightful. And I think to sum it up, we for sure, kind of work around content when we're talking about lead, intent. That is what we're talking about. And 60% of our marketing strategies totally depend upon content, I believe. And that's what the research and the data says. So I think coming to that, why is it important? Why is content an important factor in driving a marketing plan altogether for brands? Is something, as digital marketers, I'm sure each one of us will have our own experience. So if, I think starting with Radhika, if you could just lead on to that.
So content is really important, as to that's actually the face of the brand, right? That content is actually communicating the sentiments, content is actually creating the awareness, and content actually stands for what the brand is standing for at the end of the day. So content and how you use your words, right? We have it in a traditional saying, how you use our words is very important. Likewise, how we use our content and how we kind of use it in marketing is very, very important, because it brings in the engagement and it actually triggers the sentiments, both positive and negative.
Perfect. Pramod.
So let me give an example which everybody would be able to relate with. So imagine there's a hoarding on the roadside which talks about a television company, all right? and the communication is such that the remote control of the television is much bigger than the television itself. What do you think is going to happen? The marketing intent could be to sell more of television, but with the way the communication flows, chances are more often than not, at the end of the quarter, there would be more remote controls which would be sold. You know, people who had issues with remote control, they end up buying more of remote control, seeing that advertisement rather than the television, which was the desired intent of the marketing company. So this is one example. You know, we all are from digital marketing background. So just imagine there's a keyword that you put up on Google search, that you target on Google search, which is best digital marketing companies Philippines, best digital marketing companies Chennai, best digital marketing companies Delhi, best digital marketing companies Kolkata, and the inquiries that you generate, what we have seen in our past 11, 12 years is 60% of the inquiries are inquiries, like potential leads, not qualified but potential leads, and 40% of them are the ones who are looking to work in the best of the digital marketing companies. So, do you see what happens when a keyword is not able to lead the intent that we have in our mind, because the user has his own way of looking at a particular keyword. Now, to look at the other side, imagine the keyword was hire the best digital marketing agency in Kolkata. Hire the best digital marketing. Then the chances are the people who are looking to apply for a job in an agency which is best will minimize. So that's another way. I'm just trying to look at different ways in which we can look at how content is so relevant to meet and help us achieve the end result.
That was insightful, Pramod. Venkat, what's your say on it?
So I think I'm just going to go a little off topic and say that when you talk about intent, there are two main types of intent, right? So essentially, you have informational intent, and then you have something called transactional intent. When you look at informational intent, it works typically top of the funnel, where you're basically creating content that educates, that basically talks about your brand. Now, while this might not have how do I say this? While this might not have a direct impact on what happens at the bottom of the funnel, it is equally important to have that content out there so that you can create salience. You can essentially reach out to the top of the funnel and then have an always on strategy to actually come back to how you can interact with them to get them to take the desired intent. And that's what transactional intent is all about. So I think that's how I would put this.
Great. I think I will now actually jump up to the next question that I have for all of us.
If I could
Um,
just add
yeah.
something to what Venkat said, the transactional intent and informational intent is one way of looking at it, but it all boils down to the leads. That is the end goal that we all want to achieve as marketeers. And again, I have a question for the room. Uh, would anyone like to take uh, you know, go on it? What is a qualified lead? Because I, as an entrepreneur, I, as a digital marketer with experience of 12 years, I'm still learning. It's evolving. What is a qualified lead? So maybe somebody could, share their views. What's a qualified lead? Mhm. All right. So the phone number and email ID would be a qualified lead. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
That's actually the intent.
Yes, sir. My rock star friend.
No, it does. In a way, I mean, I'm not saying that any one of them outweigh each other, but through that entire user journey, right, you've got to have the right content inserted across the right platforms in a way that it's contextual to what that consumer or that user is actually experiencing, right? So, if you're going, if for instance, right, um, let's take a simple example. I'm a banking company right now. I want to sell a credit card to you, and most often than not, that's where the whole lead term philosophy actually comes in, right? So if I were to go back and target you with just saying that, why don't you take this free credit card of mine? I don't think you're really going to go in and submit your interest there. But over a period of time, if I were able to sort of expose you to content that tells you why you should be using my credit card, then is when at some point I would realize, okay, it makes sense for me to now go in. I trust this brand enough. I've built that credibility through the entire journey. And now is when I can sort of give you that transactional information that you're looking for as a brand, is what I would say.
Right, so all of us are talking about content, leads. Where all do we see this content? I mean, I think I would ask you guys, as consumers and as marketers as well, where do we actually showcase content? If any one of you would want to, kind of take on to that where all do we see content? Yes, please. Perfect. Anywhere else that we actually are? Yeah.
On socials, can you be like a bit more specific where you see your content, your personal content, be it professional content?
Okay. Okay.
All right. So
The
content.
answers that
Yeah. So
we
I
get to hear
think-
from the audience makes me feel that everybody is only and only on the digital platform. Do we not get content
Otherwise,
on the road,
Outside?
I mean,
in the newspaper?
I know that we bunch of people here represent digital agencies, but I think the
I
world
think
is
they're
a
trying to
little
please
bigger
us.
than that. And
At least, just to give you like, a thought, um, when you got out of the airport, right? By the time you collected your luggage, at least you'd have seen 5 pieces of content. But it hasn't registered at all. We are all thinking about the small screens we have.
I'll again go a step back, not just when you got onto the airport, but when I sat in the plane, Emirates, they had plethora of content talking about discover this, discover that in Dubai, places to visit, and adventure and all of that. So there's no end to content. We can definitely see content everywhere around.
so I
And
think, sorry, I'm cutting you. Yeah, that's
Yeah, I
true in a
agree.
way. I just wanted to add one small point. I'm saying that, see, today we're looking at content, unfortunately, because of the TikToks and Reels of the world as short videos, right? I mean, in this room, I'm sure that everyone, when we say content, is automatically thinking of a video that they want to consume. But what I think the group here wants to say is that it's beyond that, just that video that you're consuming, right? I mean, there's a series of messaging that's happening, and all of that comes under the purview of content.
I'll
So,
also tell you why,
yeah.
Venkat, to add to that. So, we were talking about intent, right? So, all the intent we gather, at least most of the big companies in B2B domain, they gather it through engines. So, yesterday and today, I guess, we had a lot of discussion on AI, how AI is influencing the whole thing. So, I want to share a small example, which one of my client was sharing with me. So, when it's just like one engine capturing the whole thing, right? It's like I'm going to the gym every day, and say Pramod is also joining with me. So the system will capture it as Pramod and Radhika are two people who are into fitness. But Pramod might be getting into the Starbucks there and getting a hot chocolate with a lot of cream and sugar and whatnot. But the system will capture it as an intent because he's taking the same route every day. So that's where the relevance comes. It's the content need not be all digital. Sometimes when we look at the traditional content, or I shouldn't be saying traditional content, the content which always existed, there lies the actual intent as well, which most of us are forgetting these days, I guess.
But I guess I would love my audience saying digital media is something which is attracting, because even here we are on social media platforms and that's where we are promoting ourselves, because I think we, on an average, we are spending about, say, 2.5 hours regularly on our social media platforms, and that's where we consume the content. That's where we are connecting with brands. So I'm sure, all of us marketers here are trying to promote something or the other as a brand, or our personal branding for that matter, on the social media domain. So I think I would second, the audience sitting here in terms of saying that social media is a very big decision maker in terms of the buyer's journey today when it comes to our audiences to connect with the brand. But considering that, I think all of us have our relevant stream of examples that we would like to showcase, where there's a mix of content that we've used on the online domain to kind of portray our brand's presence and promoting them in terms of the buyer to kind of decide whether they would want to use that brand or not. So if Venkat, if you could take on in terms of giving us a few insights in terms of the brands that you worked with, which actually led to people or buyers to decide if they would want to go through that brand or product altogether.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about something that's really, sort of sensitive in a way, because one of our clients is a mental health institute, and they typically want to get in touch with people who have problems, and not a lot of us want to go out there and talk about these problems, right? So what is it that really worked for us is what I can tell you. So initially we did start off by looking at is, okay, simply we need to advertise, we need to find out how many people portray behaviors, right, that could suggest that they have an ailment. We go back to them, with the typical way that an online campaign works. So we did this for a couple of months, and what we realized is that the type of leads that we were getting in, or we were able to generate out of just simple advertising, wasn't really the quality that we expected, right? So what did we do then? We had to understand that since this is a really sensitive topic that we really want people to engage with, we need to have video content, and more so regionally specific content. So in India, there are 29 states, and probably 50 different languages, including subsets of languages, right? So what we decided to do was to make long format content regionally, which explained and educated to the audience what is it that this particular disorder means, and what are the symptoms, right? Or what does the diagnosis ask you to do? And when we had the specialist come on and talk in that regional dialect, what we realized was that we were getting far more number of leads, right? And also we were able to connect with the audience in a way where only the people that really, really wanted help came out and approached us, right? So long story short, yes, content there fueled the entire journey, right? And I might be contradicting myself from 2 minutes back in saying that we all think video, but in some way it did work for us. And that's one example where I've seen content and its power outweigh just typically a spray and pray, right? So yeah.
Can I add in with another classic example which changed the way mutual fund industry is being looked upon in India? So back in 2019, September, AMFI, which is Association of Mutual Funds of India, realized that there was a problem. The problem was that out of 1.4 billion population of the country, there was just about little less than 4% of the population which was investing into mutual funds. And they realized that the risk-averse nature of Indian consumers, Indians, needs to be changed. And they came up with a killer content. The problem was to change the mindset, and they came up with a killer content. Most of the people from India would relate with this. They came up with a tagline which says, mutual fund sahi hai. People not from India, sahi hai is the Hindi word which means is all right. So mutual fund is all right. That brought a lot of feel good. That brought a lot of positive approach that the Indians were not that positive about mutual funds, and they, were able to successfully build the awareness about mutual funds, going, from television to digital to, so instead of saying traditional, let us say digital and non-digital. They went everywhere. Yeah,
It was an integrated campaign. Yeah.
integrated campaign with a 360-degree approach. Let us use some jargons. Let us make the
We should,
audience
right?
feel we are
We're on
learned
this
people.
panel,
Yeah,
we should.
yeah.
Yep.
So this campaign did the magic. 2019 September. I have some figures, so let me read that out for you, and that'll make the point more strong. The intent was to create awareness. The content was mutual fund sahi hai, and the result, my friends, is from 25.6 trillion in September 2019. From 25.6 trillion, it jumped to 27.74 trillion in September 2020. In flat 12 months, there was an increase of 2.5 trillion rupees of investment in mutual funds, and that is largely attributed to the campaign which had the intent of bringing the awareness for mutual funds.
So
That
which
makes me
brings
wonder
me
who's
to
doing their
one,
marketing for sure.
brings me to one point, right? So I think content has the power to influence the way that people behave, and if used rightly, just in the case that he just spoke about, I think lead is just a small terminology that we all use, right? I mean, it's the behavior that you're going to impact by creating relevant content for that consumer in environments where he would want to consume or she would want to consume it.
And just to add to what I was talking, sahi hai is a colloquial word, but it has a strong connect. Sahi hai is like in Australia, if you have to connect with somebody, what would you say? Hey, what's up, mate?
Right? Yeah.
I don't. Can you say that in your side, mate?
Might.
Might. Yeah. You connect.
Cry,
You connect
might.
instantly.
Cry, might.
Okay. And in USA, if you have to connect with somebody instantly, hey, what's up? Yeah.
Howdy.
Yes, and same way, sahi hai is a word which works almost across the nation from north to south to east to west. Yeah, and they were able to kill it with this tagline which said mutual fund sahi and rest is history.
I'll give you a B2B example because we had B2C examples. So there is this compliance softwares now. So a couple of years ago, it was not very prevalent. A lot of companies were not using these kind of softwares. So when we had to do an outreach for a client and essentially generate demand, we had to first educate them. Why do you need it? Why do you have to spend like a minimum of $30,000 then? I'm talking about like 4 or 5 years ago to get a module of this. So we understood that it's not going to happen in one go. So we went back to the client and said, give us some certain number of pieces of content and let's educate them first before we generate the demand. Once we had it right, we had the intent coming in, and then things went into like a pipeline where we had what we call, the jargons, MQLs, SQLs, HQLs, and appointments coming
Everything
out
is
enough.
going above the head of
Yeah.
people.
We're not familiar with this jargon, bro.
So we use it. I'm sure that some of my fellow marketers
Yes,
here
yes.
agree to it. So we had it in a flow when that education part was done right.
So, just as she was talking, something really funny was cooking in my head. Sometimes, when you don't have the best of the content, let's say we are sitting here and we don't know what is it, just throw some jargons. It works.
Okay. Guys, Venkat, you touched upon, the healthcare sector.
Yeah.
So, for me, I am working on a product which is around a preventive healthcare, which is around mental health, and it's for the European and the American market typically. So, while we kind of pushing across content for people to consume, it is a sensitive content that we're talking about, and it's a market where I think as marketers, it's important for us to tap one, and two, what is the kind of content that we show is pretty sensitive. So, with your experience, what is the kind of content? We're not supposed to be breaking across to somebody's privacy. We're not supposed to be, giving content which people cannot consume. We do not want social media blocking our ads, all of that. So, how is sensitive content really handled by marketers like us?
Sure. So I think it's a very, very valid question. I think everyone really has a right to privacy as far as their health is concerned, right? And no one wants to really share intimate information with you. But having said that, if you're able to ease the subject and relate with them in a more human way, right? Instead of jargonizing it and saying that, oh, you know what? Let's take diabetes for instance, right? So if you have diabetes type 1, and if the ad reads something like, or the video sort of says, you know what, you should do this, this, and this in a very doctor like way, then I don't think it would probably connect to the audience, because that's not what they're expecting right now. They want you to be more like a partner rather than, and that's what your content really needs to mirror. You need to be able to educate them rather than to force them to believing that you're a brand and you're sort of out there to get their wallet share, right? I mean, that's what I would say. So
You need to relate with their emotions at the end of
it
the
has to
day.
be emotional.
I think that's a very powerful keyword that you use again. I picked up the keyword emotions. When we are talking about content in any format, it all boils down to the emotional connect that you're able to build with the audience. You have to always talk the way the audience understands. If we were sitting with, if we were having this panel discussion with children below 16, the conversation would have been in a different way altogether. So it's very important to connect. And how do you connect? Multiple ways. Uh, Something that I learned from my friend Nikita is how humor can make your engagement go up, notches up. Bring some humor, connect at the emotional level, and try and be simple, easy. If it is for masses, go for carpet bombing. If it is for a niche, try and be a little classy. But it all depends on the kind of audience that you're interacting with.
Absolutely. So I think, long story short, it's test and learn, right? I mean, you can't go in there and throw something and expect everyone to sort of lap it up, right? Unless you haven't explored, avenues, right? You haven't put up relevant content and then make that content reach out to those people. How are you expecting them to come back and engage with you? Is the question that I would like to, sort of throw open. It's an open question, not like I'm expecting an answer, but yeah.
Okay, when Venkat, you just touched upon engagement with consumers. So I think coming back to our previous discussion that we just had a while back, my audience said social media, digital media. We here also believe that there is a traditional format of media also which needs to complement everything that is going online, because as consumers we need to kind of see a 360-degree approach towards marketing. So um, I think I'm a strong believer traditional media and the online domain, if working together, can give great consumer results to brands that work across. So Venkat, if you could just kind of throw a
So
little
today,
light on.
okay, yeah, I get
Yeah.
exactly where you're coming from, Ashmita, and it's a very valid point, right? So right now, amongst us itself, we're having this whole debate of what is traditional and what's not. But
Let us not use traditional. Let us
yeah,
use
exactly.
non-digital.
So I'm getting to it. So what I'm trying to say is that the way that things are working today is not in a linear fashion, right? 10 years back, when you flipped on the TV, you knew that there was a show that would come at 9 a.m. or 9 p.m., and you would probably be like tuning in exactly 5 minutes before that. But today, I mean, you really don't have any sort of boundaries of when you should be or when you shouldn't be consuming content, right? And I think it's about getting the message across in the best possible way in the circumstance, which is what will then translate into what converting that intent into actual action, which is what the lead is what us as marketeers want from the consumer.
To add to Venkat, your point, all of us agree that our attention span is very low now, right? So it's not about whether it's digital or non digital, it's about the brand getting the attention, and within that short span, us trying to communicate what we really want to communicate, and then the intent, the lead, and all those jargons will fall in place.
Just to explain how non-digital and digital together creates the magic, there are a couple of real estate brands that we work with, and we saw that. So this client in reference that I'm talking about is one of the leading real estate builders specializing into low housing complex, and they understood that the audience that they are reaching out to, that they're targeting, are not 100% on Facebook and Instagram only. There was an overlap. So what they did was everything which was on non-digital, including newspapers and outdoors. They had the same content, both in terms of look and feel and in terms of text, which kind of help the users have a strong brand connect and a brand recall when they saw something on the road. And then again, when they were targeted with custom audience on Facebook and they saw the same ad, there was a strong brand recall from the outdoors to the Facebook ad, and that really helped. We were able to optimize on the cost per lead, and we managed to give them the desired results almost 20% less than the expected cost per lead that they had set for us.
No, I think brilliant. I think the consistency in the way that you communicate is also very, very important. I think you can't expect your audience to know that it's you without, being consistent as far as your tone is concerned, or where your brand elements are positioned, or the colors. I think all of these are important. I think, and the visual cues, obviously, we're bringing in from a separate conversation, but they all have an impact on what eventually happens down that funnel.
Guys, traditional, non-traditional, I think every brand is what is looking out as leads at
I'm
the
so
end of the
thankful that
day.
now you use non-traditional. I'm so thankful.
I mean,
Yay!
every brand is looking out at leads, and that's what I was just speaking to a friend of mine who's, I think, from California here, and she rightly said that, guys, nobody is practically looking at branding at this point of time. Nobody is looking at what content you're putting. Uh, Anybody we connect to globally is just purely looking at leads at the end of the day. So I think post-pandemic, we've had a shift in terms of what to market, how much to market, and at the end of the day give a certain kind of conversion or leads, how we term it as, to our consumers. So I think there has been a huge shift overall. So if you guys can put some light upon that. For me, for example, as a brand marketer, we see a lot of healthcare products being really out loud in the market in terms of showcasing content, showcasing preventive healthcare, mental health. A lot of content has been rolling across, and we don't know, as you know, which one is right and which one is not. So there are a lot of applications which have come around, and we as marketers have actually been pulled into dealing with a lot of them as well. So post pandemic, there has been a shift when it comes to content marketing. So if you could, you guys also could share a couple of examples of how you think your brands, not just talking about leads, but also talking about the right content marketing strategy across for consumers to actually relate to them. How do you, put across to brands like who purely are looking at leads post pandemic and are not looking at consumer retention because of the kind of content and connect that these guys can make with it?
Yes, any brand actually during pandemic, we all saw that there was a surge in terms of content marketing, right? Be it influencer marketing, be it like anywhere, there was so much content out there. And as a consumer, most of us reached a point where, like Ashmita said, whether this is right, whether this is wrong, whether this information is right, whether the content is actually communicating what the brand stands for, whether you'll get the ROI out of it as a consumer. So the brands have the same question whether these are converting into leads at the end of the day. The brand will look at, hey, my $100, where is it going? It's going in waters, or whether I'm getting leads out of it. So post pandemic, I see more of that content volume has been coming down, but it's more like how actively engaging are this content, and where are the leads coming from. And so here again, the keyword emotions will come into picture. Whether it's actually serving the purpose, what is the purpose it's actually serving, and of course the money.
Very well said, Radhika. I think there was something that we spoke about yesterday, which I'm taking on today. And what you said yesterday was you can't threaten a consumer to purchase your product, right? I mean, until and unless they don't have the intent to take out the money from their wallet, there is no content or no power that is going to get them to do it. So I think, yeah, it's just like how brands think of ROI. I think as individuals, the only thing that we have is time. And in an ever changing evolving environment, that becomes really important for us, and we have to make sure that we're only spending time on things that matter to us, right? I mean, yeah, I mean, I sounded selfish, but that's
I'll just like to give a different perspective to the question. The post pandemic, there are a lot of homegrown businesses that have come up. And when we're talking about homegrown businesses, these are businesses with minimum budgets that they have for marketing, right? So, as agencies, we all must have experienced that the intent was only and only generate leads for me, my friend. I don't care how my brand looks like. So this is where I think post pandemic, to answer to your question, uh, we see more of homegrown businesses who are approaching with the one focus, which is to generate leads at the minimum cost and bring on as many leads
No, so
as
somewhere
they
that's
can.
like actually trying to run without learning how to walk, in a way. Because I mean, for everyone that thinks that they can go out there, create a website, and have a couple of products on that today, it's very easy. I'm not saying it's difficult to get a basic e-commerce site up, but what they don't realize is the fact that there is an Amazon or a Flipkart or whoever else out there that creates content that's specific to them, advertises in volumes that's unfathomable almost every day, and that's who they're competing with. So without actually and without getting content to propel your brand, uh, at the top of the funnel, there's no way that you're going to have that journey to come down the funnel and then convert.
Guys, I mean, at the end of the day, for example, I've been a brand marketer or strategist for about 10 years now. And I genuinely believe that, when you're talking about showcasing content to brands, and talking about either branding or lead generation or kind of, keywords for that matter, right? Search for the keywords. Everything actually comes down to how much of content is something that somebody can consume. Where are the platforms that somebody could consume? And we, kind of discussed that earlier. But I think how much is relevant for the consumers is I think a topic which is missing across in terms of brands to understand that you can't be too much, you can't be too less across, and you cannot be everywhere at all times. So talking about various industries that we are working across with, there are different platforms that people are using. For a brand might be LinkedIn is something which is more efficient. For somebody might be an Instagram is something which is more popular. So every industry has different content strategy, different areas that they kind of promote themselves, traditional, non-traditional, anything. So if you could, if all of you could just given me some examples of how you guys are, treating across your brands in showcasing the relevant content on relevant platforms.
So there's a another classic example which answers to your question. We work with a volleyball team in Kolkata by the name Kolkata Thunderbolts, and the season is going to start in 2 months from now. And October mid, they came up with a specific campaign requirement which said that we want to reach out to our sponsors and create a strong brand recall so that when we have a meeting with them, they don't mind paying the check instantly to us. And what we did is very simple yet very effective. We created the list of about 50 plus potential sponsors that they wanted to target, and we got to the email IDs and the phone numbers and the names of the relevant people. The marketing head, the vice president, president, CEO, all of that. So that list turned out to be about 250 odd numbers. And we set up the custom audience on all the possible platforms where they would consume as individuals and not as professionals. So we reached out to them using custom audience on YouTube, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and we are yet to see who and how much the sponsors add on, but so far so good. We've been able to map on to the sponsors, potential sponsors, and reach out to them with the relevant content, which is to just keep showing them the brand Kolkata Thunderbolts, winners of season 1, Kolkata Thunderbolts, winners of season 1, 5.1 million views, da 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 da.
So,
And
so that brings me to one point, right? So, okay, it's time for Q&A. But the last point is that I think you need to have a semblance of reach and frequency when it comes to content. You need to sort of tune it and, yeah, before she kills us.
I'll just have the last word. Any brand who comes to us, do a market study and a survey. That will help
So
us.
strategy is the key for the right content and the mix of
Strategy is the
marketing.
keyword.
Perfect. So I think we'll open the room for questions now. Yes.
Questions, guys?
Can you have the mic, please? Yeah. Okay, perfect.
So currently in many SaaS-based products, there is this PLG motion going on, right? So from this broad perspective of content, how does that change? Because I understand the B2C example, I understand the sales-led motion, but this is like a phenomenon which is happening in the past 2 years. It's called the product-led growth. So in which case, what is your advice? I'm not looking at a right answer here, because content is not always about right and wrong.
No, so I think the way that you measure, what the outcome should be across the funnel is what you should be looking at, right? So let's say, for instance, you are a SaaS-based platform, is what you said. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Now, typically, if no one knows about you but knows your competition, right? What should you be doing? You should have enough content to actually maybe not outweigh, but at least understand how you can create that impact at the top of the funnel, right? And if by that content, forget the production value of that content, if you don't back that with the right amount of money, you're not going to get the reach that you desire, A. But if at the same time you try to measure that in an ROAS language, you're not going to get any efficiency either, because the purpose of that messaging was very simple. It was just to let people know that you exist. Now, as you come down the funnel, when you talk about engagement or consideration, which is probably a mid-funnel criteria, you talk about how you can create engaging educational content which tells people more about why they should use your platform. But if they didn't know about your platform, they would never consume the content that talks about how you should use it, right? And so on and so forth. And until you get to the bottom of the funnel where you talk about what is the immediate gratification that me as a user gets by signing up onto your platform. So while content is the common keyword there, all of it depends on what that content really is telling the audience, is what I would say.
Okay.
I think how you're branding it across in terms of, as you rightly mentioned, either educating your users or kind of putting the right content across. So I think branding for me would be the key to kind of portray and get in more attention for it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Got any more questions from the audience?
Nikita promised he'd ask a simple one.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Come up and ask. It's great. Thank you.
So you spoke a lot about online content and non-online content, but I've sort of, for my clients, I want to think about how I can integrate non-online content to help them grow. And you gave some examples earlier, but I was thinking maybe some more specific examples of how you would do that and why that's important in a world where we're going more and more online.
Let me take that. So, did you say how we can align non-digital with digital?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, stick to the basics. Step number one, you know what the marketing communication is, whether it is digital or non-digital. Step number two, try and have the same look and feel, aesthetic, non-aesthetically and aesthetically, both digital and non-digital. And third is to have a proper planning in terms of budgeting that you'd like to have on both. Ideally, it varies from the kind of audience, the kind of target audience that you have, and the kind of market that you're dealing in. But ideally, it's usually a 60-40 or a 50-50, which I would suggest with the first two steps and the right budgeting. I think you'd be.
I'd say more. My question is, what's the necessity behind having non-online content when everything is going more online? When most of our client base
Create familiarity to start. Create familiarity. People shouldn't be like, oh, this I've seen in a screen. They should be like, associating with that thing. Oh, I know this. What this is.
So I'll go back to the same example. I was in the flight, Emirates flight. I saw places to discover on the flight, and I was intrigued by that. And I went on to Google and searched more about it. So
It purely depends on the brands also that you're dealing with, whether it's purely something that you can just go on an online
you
domain.
can tell us what is the kind of product or brand that you're dealing with.
I think it's perception. Sorry, I'm just getting in there. So it's the perception that you want to create, right? That really ultimately drives the type of content that you will eventually end up producing. Now, the thing is, if I only get exposed to stuff on my mobile phone, but I have no idea about what it is outside of this realm that I'm in, then I'm not going to trust it that easily. And that's really why I keep on coming back, or we kept on
That's an
coming
important
back to.
keyword, trust. Digital and non-digital alignment is important because it builds trust. It brings
And
relevancy and it
familiarity.
drives traffic from 1 to 2 and from 2 to 1.
Yeah, but my main point is, like you mentioned earlier, like lead generation is the main thing, right? We're all after leads.
Yeah.
So as a business owner who has a certain amount of bandwidth, who can only focus on a certain amount of things, I'm wondering, is it going to be useful spent on my time to do that, the non-online stuff, or is it more beneficial to just focus on online and creating that message and having it to a
Again,
wider
it
audience?
depends
I think
on
there
what
should be a
stage
fine balance, and also the brands.
and the stage in which your organization is completely like. I mean, for instance, if your turnover is like 100, and you realize that you basically need 150 to get out there and use high reach mediums like TV, then it's a no-brainer, right? I mean, you don't have the money to do that.
Honest confession, I've been more of data person. So I think 70% online is something which is working around for brands, and merely you need to kind of mix it up a little bit so that your consumers or your users really do not fade away your story. So keep the same storyline, 70% online and 30% traditional would, I think, do the thing.
Emma
for
is
you.
looking at us, so I think.
Yeah.
We're done.
Thanks, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks for your
you.
questions as well. Let's give them a nice round of applause. That's great. We need a group photo for you guys. Can we have a nice group photo, please? That'd be fantastic.